Okay, this is good. We got Jo Piazza, whose seventh book, not novel, but seventh book, The Sicilian Inheritance, it dropped about a month ago. She's still got that pleasant, just published afterglow about her. How is it going? How are you feeling about the book now that it's out in the world and spreading its wings?
Good, good. This book, I've written a lot of books at this point, and this one is my favorite. I love the Sicilian Inheritance so much. I don't feel bad saying that. I also think it's the best book that I've ever written. And we've seen something really awesome with this one. Usually the first 2 weeks are like the biggest for books, and
Right.
then everything kind of peters off. And this one is just selling and selling through word of mouth because people love it. And that's been great. I'm also working my ass off, so I'm super tired because, I love readers. And I think that as authors, we really don't have a choice but to really build our community of readers. And so I've been zooming into book clubs. I've been
Yeah.
making Negroni for book clubs when I zoom in. I mean, there's gin and Contrada sitting on my desk right now because I've been making so many cocktails while
So
I
you
zoom
you feel obliged. You feel obliged that if you're going to zoom into these book clubs, you should make yourself a cocktail as well.
in.
Just the
Yeah,
right thing to do.
it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so yeah, it's
Wow.
been good and wild. I think we kind of take a gamble sometimes releasing a book in April that could be a great summer, what they call beach read.
Yeah.
But I think it paid off this time because I think Sicilian Inheritance is just going to keep going through the summer, which feels really nice because I love it so much.
No author should ever apologize for saying they love their book. Why write it if you don't like? You should love it. You should love it. And if you don't, who else is going to love it? You know,
Right.
I
Exactly.
feel very
Exactly.
strongly about that.
Yeah.
So as I said, this is book number seven, I think, unless something isn't listed, but it looks like
Uh, it's actually 12.
oh, for God. See, now listen, I did my
Yeah,
homework and I
I
went on
know.
your website, but I did not see 11 other books listed there. So I guess I'm just, I didn't do
No,
enough
I'm
research.
also I'm total shit at updating my website. That's the thing.
Okay,
Also, no
fine.
one goes to it anymore. Like anyone that wants to follow me
Ew.
to my Instagram. Uh, so yeah, it's 12, which is crazy. Two of them I wrote under a different name because I wrote them for the television show Younger, uh,
Okay.
which focuses on the world of publishing. And because they have fake books on the show, they wanted me to write two novels for them, which was really fun. And yeah, but then 10 other novels,
Okay.
nonfiction.
Nonfiction, memoirish with at least one
One
memoirish.
memoir, one memoir. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, it's like a heavily reported memoir because I'm like, no one at 43 should really write a memoir.
You know,
No one's that interesting. So,
you
but How to Be
know,
Married was about me traveling around the world, asking people how do you do this weird marriage thing?
there's a famous axiom or maybe just saying in the theater, perhaps you're familiar with it. There are no
Yeah.
small parts, only small actors. And I think that there are no small memoirs, just writers who haven't, I won't call them small writers, but haven't seen the bigness in their story. So I don't think there's such a thing as a small. You can write a memoir at 25 if you are so inclined,
Sure,
I
sure.
think. But
Yeah.
okay, fair enough. But so you're writing as a profession, just writing. That started with journalism, correct?
It did. It
Okay,
did.
so you go to college, I assume. Did you go and get a degree in journalism, or did you just say, "I'm smart, I got an English degree. What the hell am I going to do?" How did you go to journalism?
Yeah, no. Well, I started out at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, and actually studied economics
Okay.
and political communication at the Annenberg School. And then I started writing for the student newspaper, the Daily
Mhm.
Pennsylvanian, which is a really robust student newspaper. And it's the local newspaper in West Philadelphia. It covers everything.
Really? Student
Yeah,
newspaper.
student newspaper. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
it's great.
Okay.
It's great. It has its own entertainment magazine called 34th Street, which I was the editor of. And I just got the journalism bug and I loved it. And instead of becoming an investment banker like everyone else that I knew, I went to Columbia for journalism school. And then I interned at the Times in Trenton, my senior year of college, and like really blew off all my classes, which is the reason I did not graduate cum laude. But it was great. I mean, I was an intern for the fucking Times. And then I wanted to stay in New York, but the only job I could get in New York was as an assistant on the gossip column at the New York Daily News. And I knew nothing about celebrities, and I took it anyway. And it made me an awesome reporter because, I mean, those gossip columns at the Post and the News, they were really covering power in New York. So, I would be at the James Beard Awards. I would be at a movie premiere. I would be at a massive fundraiser with like all of the CEOs of the major companies there. And, figuring out how to report with all different kinds of people, which just made
Yeah.
me able to report on anything. I went to 7 political conventions and covered
Wow.
those. I was on the bus on a lot of political campaigns. I then switched over to being a political reporter for Current TV, that beautiful failed progressive television experiment. And since then I moved into magazines, I moved online, I like, did all the things before landing on book writing and podcasting.
But you were a young person. I mean, you probably were still in your mid-20s when all this started happening. It must have been such an education, such a real education about kind of how the world works, or a certain part of the world really works. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, when I started out, I thought I was going to be in newspapers forever,
Yeah.
or magazines forever. Because the people, right above me, they'd been in these jobs for 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And now the world of media is just so different. I've pivoted and changed careers 12 times
Wow.
within media
Yeah.
and within mediums. And partially it's fun and also exhausting. I'm like, yeah, I'd really like to that fucking editor at large job that existed all through the 80s and 90s and then
Right.
just like coast in my Sag Harbor house and write books. But those jobs don't exist anymore.
Well, maybe you would be bored, Joe. Maybe it
Oh,
just
whatever.
wouldn't be no, you think you could
That's
have
not
done it?
true. No, I like money and leisure time.
Do
So that is
you?
not true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you like money, but leisure time you're not getting right now. You just got too much going on. So you fell into book writing.
Yeah.
Um, which was your first?
So I wrote a really shitty practice novel called
Okay.
Love Rehab while I was on a yoga retreat in Tulum.
Okay.
Um, before Tulum became Brooklyn. And it was like such sad auto fiction of my life dating in my
Sure.
20s. But
Sure.
I did it. And like that was my proof that I could write a novel. Prior to that, I'd written a book called Celebrity Inc., which feels like it was very before its time. It was essentially Harvard Business School case studies for how celebrities make money.
Right.
Um,
So that was
but
really the first published book you wrote.
that was the first published book. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people had been trying to get me to write something really gossipy about my time as a gossip columnist. So I was like, that
Right.
is so boring to me. I want to dig into the economics of this. And this was the precursor to social media. In fact, I had a chapter on social media about Charlie Sheen getting paid for the first tweet. And it was
Oh,
also pre-Kardashians. It was like
right.
just when celebrities like the Jersey Shore people were getting paid to go to parties and
Right.
deals. I mean, and obviously we've seen this entire world blow up
Yeah.
since then.
Yeah.
Um, but that was great. It was such wonderful reported nonfiction. And then I did another nonfiction book called If Nuns Ruled the World about
Yeah.
badass feminist nuns, because in the meantime, I got really burnt out on gossip and celebrity and political reporting. In the same year, I worked on the Elliot Spitzer hooker story, Britney
Oh,
Spears breaking down and shaving her head, and
right.
um, Hillary Clinton's campaign. And I was exhausted. I was like, getting a master's in religious studies sounds like fun. So I did that. I got my degree from NYU by going part-time, and my thesis was on how nuns used Twitter. And I turned that into the book If Nuns Ruled the World, which I have to say that's my favorite nonfiction. It's kind of a sleeper, but it still sells really well.
Really?
Yeah, it does. It does. And not just with nuns, but for people hungry for stories of badass women.
Right.
And yeah, I love that one.
You know, it occurs to me, this is weird. I have a friend who's a judge, actually, and he has a couple sons who are super bright, super ambitious. But in their mind, one of the careers they all toy with is being an influencer. That people, all
Oh,
these
yeah.
people of this
God,
generation, they're like, I want to
yeah.
be an influencer. And it's like,
It's the worst. Yeah.
it's such a, I don't
Yeah.
know. I have old man feelings about that as a job career, in terms of an ambition for someone young, but maybe it's inevitable. How can you
I
not?
have old man feelings about it too. I mean,
Yep.
I started my podcast under the influence 4 years ago, exploring the world of mom influencing. I thought it
Right.
was going to be 8 episodes, and now I think it's 140.
Wow. Wow.
Because social media is media now,
Yeah.
sadly, for
Yeah.
better and worse. And I think it needs to be covered same way we cover anything else that has power.
Yep.
And mainstream media doesn't do that. They completely fail at covering social media
Yeah.
and
They
these
don't.
influencers
Yeah.
well. Um, and more young people want to be influencers right now than almost anything else. It pains me and breaks my heart. I feel like the train has kind of left the station, and now we just need to figure out how
Yeah.
to how to talk about this. My next nonfiction book actually is about this. It's called, I haven't talked to anyone about this yet.
Well, is it okay? Is it okay? Because sometimes it's premature. You feel comfortable doing it?
I mean, I
Yeah.
talk about everything. I don't give a
Okay.
fucking.
Go. Go.
Um, I haven't even told my agents, but we'll see what happens. It's called, I just did the proposal last week. It's called The Expectation Gap. Yes, the internet is making you hate your life. And it's
Oh,
about how all of the fake things that influencers post by making life look beautiful and glossy in every goddamn aspect are
right.
leading to the disappointment and anxiety in practically everything that we do.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot about the internet and social media that's pretty cool and that I like in terms of people being creative all the time and wanting to
Yeah.
make stuff. But like anything else, there is a lot that is not so great. But this is such as the nature of the booming world we live in, just
Yep.
changes.
Yep.
So I think about, you have a character in this. Well, the protagonist is sort of our age-ish, your age-ish probably. Um, but another powerful character is a much older woman who had lived through the 20th century. And
Yeah.
think about someone who lived through the 20th century, how insane, think about where they were when they showed up on the shores of America and what America was just 80, 90 years later. It's really mind-boggling in the history of humanity what has changed in a very short time when we think about it.
It's insane. I mean, I did a podcast on the life and legacy of Laura Ingalls Wilder called Wilder. And she grew up in a log cabin in the woods and drove in a covered wagon across the prairie. And by the time she died, she was flying on an airplane, right?
Right.
So I mean, look, there's been seismic shifts over every generation, but I think it's changed way more, way quicker, and
For sure.
our brains haven't caught up, is the
Yeah.
thing. We don't know how to deal with it properly. And it's really interesting watching what's going to happen with my kids. And I think about media literacy in children all the time now because I
Yeah.
have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old.
Wow. Okay.
And we call
Busy.
you, yeah, we call YouTube poop tube in our house.
Oh.
Because kids love to talk about poop.
Yep.
And also I just
Yep.
kind of want them to know that it's filled with shit. It's like
Right.
there's like a lot of things that are like ridiculous and mind-numbing, but we do watch it, which is why we talk about it. The other day we discovered this amazing former NASA engineer who creates squirrel and octopus mazes and does like incredible STEM videos. So I want them to see cool stuff. I want them to see the creativity and the content creation, but then I also want them to look at everything with a very judgmental eye.
Yeah.
Hence, yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. They're going to be okay. They're going to
They're
be
gonna be
okay.
fine.
Their
I mean,
mom knows too much.
everyone fucks up their kids in their own way.
That,
Okay.
and you help them in ways you don't understand. This is the weird thing because I have two grown kids, and
Yeah.
the things that they appreciate for me always kind of surprise me, and the things that they remember, oh, God help me, that I didn't know at the
Yeah.
time. So, okay, so Sicilian Inheritance,
Yeah.
very compelling book. Oof, right from word one. Good job. I'm so glad it's selling.
I
Um,
am too, man. I'm like, oh, I love it so much.
That's,
Please.
and I'm glad it's got some legs to it. I remember Donald Moss, the literary agent. I saw him at a writers' conference years ago, and he wrote a book called "Writing the Breakout Novel." It's very in the world of writing books. It's kind of a big deal. And he was like, "This is the way a book becomes a bestseller." This was back in the '90s, but I think it's still largely the case. He says it's when somebody takes their friend by the hand, walks them over to a section of the bookstore, and say, "You have to read this book," because we can only do so much. You can do book talk and all that kind of stuff, or social media, but somebody has to like it and recommend it to their friend. I think that
Yeah.
nothing beats it. Do you think that's still true, even in the age of social
Yeah.
media?
100%. And some of that happens on social media, right? I have people
Sure.
posting about it and screaming about it. I haven't been able to crack book talk yet. I think because, book talk just really likes uh
I think it's,
fantasy
yes, I
vampire
think so.
sex
I think
books,
so.
but
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I put a dragon in this book and cave sex, just hoping they'd like it, but so far nothing. Um, but it is old school word of mouth. It's
Yeah.
friends being like, oh my God, I'm reading this. You should read this too, because I think we want to read in community. And
Yeah.
that's why the celebrity book club books do so well,
Yep.
because
Yep.
that and I can talk about them pretty well from a lot of perspectives. My novel, We Are Not Like Them, that I co-wrote with Christine Pride, was a GMA pick.
Right.
And I've seen firsthand like the boost that you get from that. It's
Sure.
not so bananas. But I think it does suck a lot of the air out from other books.
Yeah.
And I don't think publishers have a robust marketing plan for when they think a book is going to get picked and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's a double-edged sword. We want to read in community, and those book clubs give us a way to do that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the fact like that I zoom into these book clubs, and then everyone is like, "Oh my God, I just bought 3 copies to give to my friends and my mom." Like that is the highest compliment,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Okay, so you love this book, but tell me, and it's kind of a hard question to answer, but try. Why? What is it? Why do you love it? Like, what is there something you went through writing it? Something you had to tap into to write it? Why do you love it so much? You, the author.
Yeah, well, it's loosely based on my own family history. My great-great-grandmother was allegedly murdered in Sicily more than 100 years ago. And so there's that aspect of it, that it's so personal, that this is a story that has been passed down through the generations. And because the novel is completely fiction, I did not do much research into the actual story. Uh, when I was writing the novel, I'm like, I just want to like go and I want to create and fly by the seat of my pants and write delicious fiction. But then because I'm an entire like ridiculously thorough content creator, after the book was finished, I decided to solve the murder in real life. And
So wait a minute, your grandmother's
great great
great
grandma.
grandmother's. Okay.
Yeah, so I've been going back and forth to Sicily and making a true crime podcast where I solve the murder.
Oh man.
Um, Also called The Sicilian Inheritance. But not to get too woo-woo about the book, but it just flowed out of me. And I think like I genuinely felt like there were, ghost spirits or whatever of all of these Sicilian women who were like, we want our stories told. And I wanted to write, I had this idea forever. I picked it up, I put it down, but like I started writing in earnest during the pandemic when I was stuck in the house with 2 small children and I wanted to escape. And so I wanted to write this delicious adventure that brought me joy. And I wanted to bring readers joy because I also like, I read a lot of books that are just depressing as fuck. And
Yeah.
I was like, can we just enjoy reading again? And the highest compliment I'm getting right now is people telling me Sicilian Inheritance got them out of a reading slump, or that it's converting non-readers.
Ooh.
Things that are awesome, right? And
Hey,
so
listen. This is apparently this week. I just read it in the New York Times, but I just did a podcast sort of adjacent to this. That this is the 200th anniversary of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, which included his famous Ode to Joy, which he wrote when he was stone deaf and couldn't hear,
yeah,
but he wrote about joy anyway. I think joy is the highest place you can be. It's the point of life. So if you want to write a book that brings joy, it's a calling, baby. You're doing God's work. I think nothing better. And by the way, you cannot get woo-woo enough for me.
Oh, good.
It's
Good.
not possible. It's not
I love
possible.
it.
Don't you love it? This is one of the weird things that writers don't always want to admit. Maybe you don't care. I don't think you do.
I really don't care. I'm just stopped
No,
worrying.
but you said it flowed out of you that sometimes the best stuff is not always, but sometimes it's the easiest stuff. Sometimes it's the stuff that comes, yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Totally. Totally.
yeah.
This was an easy book for me to write. I think it's also an easy book for people to read. Look, I wanted it to be, like I said, fun and to bring joy. And then we just like slip in the right amount of taking on the patriarchy in there. So,
Just the
um,
right amount.
just the right amount. And I've also settled on the fact, like, I am not a literary writer. I don't like reading literary fiction that
Right.
much. I think I kind of tried to force myself to read it because you feel like you should to be a smart person for a long time. But like, I like books that are a lot of fun. I like commercial fiction. I like writing commercial fiction. Even the books that I co-wrote with my partner, Christine Pride, We're Not Like Them, You Are Always Mine, and we have another one coming up, I Never Knew You at All. They're heavier books just because they deal with race and social justice, but they're also eminently readable.
Yeah.
And that's what I think readers want and deserve.
Yeah. No one should apologize for their taste. I interview all sorts of writers. I know lots of writers, as I'm sure you do too. And some write literary fiction, some don't. And so, but it's all like everybody should just do what they want to do
Do
and
what they
no
want. Yeah.
apologies. No apologies. You should, whatever brings you pleasure, then that is good enough. All right. So you're just like you say you want leisure time, but I'm not sure I believe you. You
I know
seem to just,
my husband doesn't believe me either.
well, there's good
He's
reason.
like,
There's evidence
that's
too.
not what you want. Yeah, I know.
What would you do? You'd say, "Oh, finally, I've got time off.
Fine.
What should I
I'm gonna learn
write?"
German. True. It's totally true. I'm bad with leisure time. I think, when I think of leisure time, I do just kind of I love the flexibility that I've created in this career of mine, that I can spend time with my kids. We do have full-time childcare, which I
Yeah,
talk about a lot because I think there's also this myth of the woman writer that we sacrifice everything to be able to do both things,
right.
mother and write. It's like I get up at 5 a.m. before my kids get up, and I'm like, no, I sleep. Like I love sleep. I love my kids when I don't have to do absolutely everything for them. So we
Yeah,
have, a nanny who lives with us, and I have the ability to be a mom and also be a writer, which
yeah.
is amazing.
I work with a lot of clients and students. I teach something called fearless writing, which is all about the emotional challenges, psychological challenges of writing. And for a lot of the women clients and students, guilt over taking time to themselves is a big one.
Yeah,
And and I try to remind them that most of the successful women writers I know, and I know a ton of them, understand that if they have that to be who they are, they've got to do this, and they're not, and there is no real sacrifice. That you would be a crappy mom if you didn't write. I contend.
I would be. I would be.
You'd be
Yeah. And I
bitter.
also
You'd
I
be
want my
bitter.
I want both of my kids, or oh God, there's so many of them. I want my son as well as my daughters to see their mom doing something she loves and
Yeah,
working hard and being ambitious. And I want to model that for them, because I
yeah.
want my son to support women like that. And I want my daughters to be women like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's you really teach them by what you're doing almost more than
Totally.
anything. So you're showing them what it's like. Because I've known some writers who grew up with, writer parents, not many, not many, most do not.
Yeah.
But those who did, like Andre Debus talked about his dad. He said he would go into a room and write, and like that's what a person can do. And so he understood it not as this bizarre thing, but it was just one of the things you can do. And so I think that it's probably hard for you because I don't know what your parents did, but they probably weren't writers and podcasters. And so to see it is a unique thing, but it's going to be very normal to them. They're going to be surprised that all their parents aren't writing books,
It's
or their
true. It's true.
friends' parents.
My kids also just have an abnormal view of the world, I've realized. Because first off, they see me on TV and they're just like, "Ugh, so boring. Can you change this?" But they also split our time between Philly and this like ramshackle cabin in the Catskills. And their best friend's parents own a hotel there, and our other friends own the grocery store. And so they have a very distorted view of what a grocery store is. Because it's also a bar, and we also threw their birthday party there. And they also have a tab. So they're like,
Uh,
Mr. Will, can I just put this lollipop on our tab? And I'm like, they are not going to know how to grocery shop.
you know, it's
Yeah.
funny. If they want to write, they could have a great childhood memoir about
I'm
growing up
just trying
with
to make it,
you.
yeah, I'm trying to make it like I'm trying to make their childhood, because they're just so soft. Like I grew up with like I was an only child. Both my parents were alcoholics. Like they didn't get along. They fucking hated each other.
Right,
Um, and like it was hard. It
right,
was.
right.
My husband grew up like in a picture perfect idyllic childhood with great parents, and he's soft, and I don't think he navigates the world as well as I do. And so I'm just trying to give my kids just enough weirdness to be a little more
Yeah,
adventurous
I
and
know.
interesting. They need something to talk about in therapy,
That's
and
right.
I
That's
want to
right.
I want to give that gift to them.
I had a friend who he really wanted to be a writer. He's like, but my family was so nice. I really liked them. They were so nice to me. I feel like I have nothing to say. But I don't believe that. I think you can have something to say, even if you
You
haven't.
could totally have something to say. Yeah, no, exactly, exactly. We'll see. I'm always fascinated by kids who become writers when their parents are writers. I'm actually working with my friend Charlie right now on a book he wants to write. His grandfather was Charles Oppenheimer,
Oh,
and
geez.
yeah, it's a fucking lot. And we want to work on a book about legacy, about, how do we take these
Yeah.
stories of people before us and how do they shape us? And I, want to talk to some of the kids of, great writers who I know who have become a writer, but I'm like, I wouldn't want to follow in those footsteps. That's a
Yeah,
lot.
it's got its own burdens. It's got its own burdens. Well, Joe, you're a very interesting person, as I suspected you would be. Busy, lots of stuff coming out. Sicilian Inheritance, people get on the train. It's
Get on the
chugging along.
train.
Get
Do
on
it.
that
Yeah,
train.
everybody loves it.
That's right. Find out why. There's a
Yeah.
lot about it to like. There is indeed. But I'm not quite through with you, my dear. First of all, if you want to, okay, let's say they want you to zoom into their Martha's Vineyard book club. How do they find you and do that?
Yeah, I'm on the Instagrams. I'm at Jo Piazza author, and people just have been DMing me, and then we're figuring it out and we're getting it on the calendar.
Okay, get on the Instagrams, people. Get on the Instagrams. That's how you can meet her. Okay, but I'm not quite done with you. I want you
Okay,
to
cool.
think about all the writing you've done,
Yeah.
all the way back to your journalism days. And if it's taught you anything about being a person, about being human, what has it taught you?
Mm. I mean, I think that the best thing that we can do as human beings in the world is to be curious about other people's stories, And I learned that as a journalist, because being curious about people's stories was my job. But I also think it's the best path to empathy and connection in a world where we're more and more divided than ever. But I think if we can just listen a little bit more and hear each other's stories and hear why we're all unique and how our stories have shaped us, the world's going to be a lot nicer place.